What's the biggest difference, I guess, between General Motors and Ford? And I mean, what are the differences in the valve bodies between these two, and why does one seem to be having different problems than the other? They don't seem to have all the same problems.
Well, yeah, it's simple. So there are many different versions of these valve bodies. So Ford for the 10R80s and the 60 and 90 has a no manual valve version and a manual valve version. And the difference is if you have a column shifter, like a mechanical shifter, or if you have a push button shifter. So for example, my Lincoln had the push button shifter, and Air to 4 did have a manual valve and a manual valve position sensor on top of the valve body, or technically on bottom, depending how you look at it. And something like an F-150, lower trim level, just has the regular mechanical manual shifter, it does not have a manual valve. And so the range sensor controls the input to the solenoids in the sense that you put it in drive, and now the computer sees that it's in drive off the range sensor, and the computer then tells the solenoids that correspond with starting in first or second gear to feed oil to those clutches. That's how that works. On the General Motors side of things, the early valve bodies worked that way, but the later ones adapt a system similar to the 10-speed Allison, where they use feed limit valves instead of latch valves to control oil pressure to certain parts of the valve body. The other problem is the late model General Motors ones have a magnetic manual valve, which is relatively reliable, believe it or not, but extremely difficult and complicated to remanufacture. I don't know of any facility that remanufactures magnetic manual valve 10L80 valve bodies except for NextGen. On the Allison side of things, things get a little bit more dramatically different. There are no latch valves in any Allison 10-speed, quote unquote, Allison. And there are no feed limit valves in any Ford transmission. And so there are some hydraulic differences inside the valve body in that sense. The separator plates are different, but the way that it sends oil to the clutches and the way it manages that oil is 80 to 90% the same. Even if those components are found in different sections of the valve body, they're serving the same purpose.
Huh. So the separator plate, is it on Fords, is the reason why they're not having as many issues as General Motors? Do they have a slightly better separator plate, or what?
I would say that by the smallest margin on earth, it's slightly better. And now keep in mind, it's still really bad. Like, we invented separator plates because we got bit in the ass when we started trying to remanufacture these, and we found out very quickly separator plates from the factory are not good. But here's what I'll tell you. So it's got a black silica-based bonding on the plate, basically a bead, as some people call it, of gasket material. Supposedly, this is designed to help it seal. They tried this on Land Rover, my favorite company, Land Rover, back in the day, and it did absolutely nothing. Some people dispute that. That's fine. The data agrees with me. Take it up with the facts. This is not a successful way to endorse sealing. Our laser cut separator plates are the thickest that you can possibly manufacture for the valve body, and they seal better than anything else on the market. We've tested it. If somebody wants to dispute that, then that's fine. Buy one and test it. So I designed those parts because I wanted us to have the most reliable 10R140 parts on the market, and that is the reason that this exists. The other thing is that although the Ford separator plate has filters in it, they're removable filters, whereas the factory separator plate on the GM ones has a filter inside it already that is layered between the plate. And so you can't remove them without filing them out. So that's a major failure point in the 10-speed General Motors one and Allison one. But, we're splitting hairs here. I think
Yeah.
Ford did a little bit more copying on ZF side of the book, and I think GM did a little bit more copying of their 8L90. What's crazy is that the 8L90 is a terrible transmission, and it is the focus of many lawsuits. So I'm very surprised that they wanted to do anything that they found in the 8L90, but that's okay. It's job security for me and my staff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just, it seems like you said in the last video, so easy to, spend another $20 on the separator plate or whatever it cost them, $10. I don't know, probably
Sure.
cost them almost nothing. And just not have these problems. I mean, even that alone may have masked enough problems to get people through warranty. Do you anticipate Ford having GM-like issues given the differences in the valve bodies?
There's a lot of really unsuccessful customers with the 10R80. I don't mean to label the customer unsuccessful, but I mean their
Yeah.
experience was unsuccessful. So I think the reason that Ford has been a little less abused in terms of public relations is because most of the time they have these items in stock. So you don't have these catastrophes where people have been down for 7 months sort of deal. I think that's the thing with Ford is you can get a valve body. It's going to suck. It's going to do the same thing, but at least you can get one. I think
Mm,
that's the one thing Ford has benefit from. And that wasn't the case the whole time during COVID. It seemed like Ford was the worst. But things fluctuate. And obviously, things like tariffs, logistical environments, macroeconomics are all influencing how hard it is or easy it is to get parts. I think General Motors, the demand is very aggressive for their valve bodies because they're so terrible and they have so many vehicles immobilized. Ford is having these problems as well, like I said, but Ford has their own transmission plant in Latonia, Michigan, or Livonia, or whatever that place is. That is their own transmission plant, and it makes all your late model front wheel drive and rear wheel drive stuff. So I think Ford might be able to supply them a bit faster, but that doesn't
mm.
change the fact that they're terrible, low quality, and unsafe to use, in my opinion.
Yeah, be interesting to see what happens if they continue to have people. That might be it. You see a lot of people complain online, even in the comments on these videos, and I mean, the majority of people complaining that have a problem with GM. That's the first thing they say is been down for 4 weeks, been down for 4 months, whatever it is, and all it is a valve body. It's not like it's this insanely difficult part to manufacture. You wouldn't think, not like the entire transmission. So
We remanufacture them here all day and we don't have these problems. So I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe they should call us and we'll make a valve body that doesn't suck. I think their current supplier, Macleon Fog, is screwing them in the backside, in my opinion.
I think that yeah, I'm going to stand by it, man. I think dealerships should the only dealer markup that is really valid anymore is buy NextGen's parts and put it on the little sticker dealer markup
Oh man.
AT4X plus NextGen. It's a mark it up 1,500, 2 grand. They'll still sell it.
We have
People
some
love it.
Dodge dealerships that have done that.
That's
Ram
awesome.
dealerships. But it's just crazy to me. And my favorite part of all this is they're acting like these trucks are safe to drive this way. Let me explain something for because I know there's somebody with cheese puffs on their fingertips pecking away how I don't know what I'm talking about, but let me explain something. The problem here is that this transmission goes forward when you put it in reverse under certain conditions, and they don't even know who it is. So what happens when you're in your driveway and you're going to work and you wave goodbye to your kids and they're in front of the car waving at you and you go put your vehicle in reverse and like you assume it's going to go backwards, how ridiculous, and you go hit the gas and now your kids are dead and they're saying, "Yeah, no, that's totally cool, man. Yeah, screw your kids." So I don't like. It's not hyperbole. Like if you owned a car company and you were having an issue where you put your vehicle in reverse and it goes forward, wouldn't you like want everyone to know, like, hey, before you hit somebody and sue us, can you like bring this in so that we can fix it for you? Like this is just another example of Ford being more worried about the shareholders than the consumers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I bet. I would imagine most people. I imagine the reaction to this recall is going to be it's a big nothing. Most guys on the internet are going to say, look, if you don't realize your car's going forward when you put it in reverse, like they'll actually excuse the manufacturer.
I know.
I always encourage people to like stop siding with the manufacturers when they put out things that don't work. Like brand alignment and brand loyalty is so silly at this point. It's all profit. We all need to try to hold them accountable. If we don't all do it and we team up and we treat it like teams, like Team Ford versus Team GM, like that's not going to move the industry forward. It's not going to put pressure on them. So yeah, it seems like that's the biggest problem I see is people will poo-poo this and say it's no big deal. And for someone that's paying attention, like me, when I drive, like, yeah, I'm probably not going to get, even if it happened to me, I'd probably be able to stop it before something bad happened. But I certainly don't want it to happen, and it shouldn't happen. It's like they're missing the whole point of it. Like it should never happen in an automatic transmission.
When you say it's your fault as a driver for not knowing that when you put the vehicle in reverse, it's going to go forward. When you say things like that, that to me sounds the exact same as somebody hearing about a woman getting accosted by some, creepy pervert and saying, well, what were you wearing? So
Yeah,
what
right.
what is that supposed to mean? So if she's not wearing a burqa, she deserves to get thrown in the back of a white van. Like what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
So if the consumer did not telepathically assume that when they put it in reverse, it's going to lunge forward, that's their problem. Like, come on. The bottom line here is that these people have a duty to release vehicles that are safe to use and are roadworthy. And I don't believe they care about that duty. And I think that their friends at the NHTSA covering for them is a crime against humanity, in my opinion.